Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Playbook hosted by Inside the Pylon. My name is Sal Conti and today we're going to be going over Ohio State's 2015 defense, specifically their means of creating pressure and denying first down conversions on third down. This unit was highlighted by All-American and third overall draft pick in the 2016 draft Joey Bosa, as well as fellow first-round draftees Eli Apple and Darren Lee. There are also a few other standout defenders on this unit that I will point out later on. However, it should also be recognized that these defenders were very well coached and were put in very good places to win against the offensive scheme based on their alignments and assignments. So our first play here is during Ohio State's fourth game of the year against Western Michigan at home. The situation is 3rd and 14. Western Michigan is a zone running team that in passing situations like this likes to spread the field with 4 and sometimes 5 receiver sets and get the ball to their best receivers like Corey Davis and Daniel Braverman on in routes and runaway routes versus man coverage. The ball is on the plus 20-yard line on the left hash. Western Michigan is in a 2x2 set with an A-back set to the right, 10 personnel. Ohio State has nickel personnel on the field with 2 corners, 2 high safeties, and a nickel back to the right, apexing the right tackle and the slot receiver. Pre-snap, this could look like some form of quarters coverage, 2-man, or some other form of middle-of-the-field open coverage. Let's play the play and see what happens. Post-snap, Ohio State's defense goes from a 2-high to a 1-high shell, revealing their fire zone cover 3 look. Their nickel player, number 16, is a deep third player, with both the field and boundary corners playing deep third as well. Both the safeties to the field and boundary play sky technique, meaning that they're responsible for the flats. However, given the distance of 14 yards Western Michigan needed to convert, both of the Ohio State safeties were able to stand pat at around the 9.5-yard line and rally to anything underneath. This scheme keeps Ohio State protected from the shot play downfield and gives them enough support in the intermediate area to chase and prevent a conversion. With the A-back motion to the field, Western Michigan finds himself 1 hat short, with 5 blockers to Ohio State's 6 defenders. That means that the quarterback is responsible to throw hot off of that extra defender. Western Michigan's blocking scheme is as follows. The right tackle is man on the defensive end, who in this case is Joey Bosa, and the other 4 offensive linemen will slide adjacent to their left. So the right guard will slide to the right A-gap, the center will slide to the left A-gap, the left guard will slide to the left B-gap, and the left tackle will slide for the widest of the rushers. Up front, Ohio State draws up a pretty complex blitz, but it can really be divided into 2 separate games. They work a 4-man game on the right and a 2-man game on the left. Let's start with the left side. Their 5 technique, Joey Bosa's job, is to keep contained to the left and win the one-on-one pass rush battle. This is advantageous for Bosa, who has good takeoff, pad level, and very good hand fighting abilities to disengage and crash the edge of the pocket. This opens area for number 5, Raekwon McMillan, their Mike linebacker, who, after Bosa takes the edge, will dart into the B-gap. McMillan, for this play, is the hot read, which means as soon as he blitzes, the quarterback has to get the ball out quick because he is unaccounted for. As for the right side, the nose guard has a huge responsibility on the play. He has to hang on to the center for as long as he can until the right guard joins in. This will turn the right guard's shoulders and hips, leaving room for the defensive end, number 59, to loop around and pierce through the slide protection. The weak side inside linebacker, number 37, Joshua Perry, is the contained player to the boundary, keeping any potential scramble in check. And Darren Lee, number 43, as a stand-up rush linebacker, does a good job of playing with shock in his hands to disarm Willie Beavers, the left tackle, and interrupt the QB's line of vision. On this next play versus Northern Illinois, we see Ohio State line up against a different animal personnel-wise. While Western Michigan's goal was to spread the defense out and get the ball out quick on third down, Northern Illinois leveraged more 5-step concepts and rollouts to get their mobile quarterback on the move away from potential pressure. This play could give us a good idea of what Ohio State does defensively to both get after the quarterback and protect themselves versus QB scramble. On this play, we see a 3rd and 6 with the ball on the minus 29-yard line, right hash. Northern Illinois deploys 10 personnel in a trips formation to the left, with the back set weak on the right. Ohio State is again in nickel personnel, with 2 corners on either side of the formation showing press pre-snap. Their strong and free safeties sit on the hash about 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. Their nickel player is Darren Lee, who plays about 4 to 5 yards off the number 2 receiver to the left. And then lastly, you'll see Ohio State has 2 linebackers in the game. One number 5, Raekwon McMillan, who lines up as almost in a rush end position to the left outside Joey Bosa. And the right inside linebacker, who's in a 30 technique, means he's at linebacker depth behind the 3 technique to the weak side of the formation. Ohio State is in pretty solid shape in the back end as they're prepared for any route concept put towards them. On this play, they play with a 2-high shell with 4 total deep defenders and 3 underneath defenders. The technique of the safety to the trip side suggests that this could be a quarters call, with the adjustment of the corners playing bump and run on the perimeter as opposed to playing off and or with a tilt. The nickelback Darren Lee, who plays 4 or 5 yards off of the number 2 receiver, plays the curl. The wall defender is Raekwon McMillan, who is the linebacker walked up on the edge of the line of scrimmage. His job is to wall the vertical release of number 3, which in this case is the number 2 receiver. Now you may ask, how does that make sense? Well, in this case, the number 2 receiver is the progression 3 because the number 3 receiver worked inside. So in other words, he just worked for the only vertical release he could find. The will linebacker settles into the weak side B gap. He could be there for any potential slant, but I think he's mostly there to protect versus quarterback scramble, and he'll just settle right there. On this play, he's not needed to protect for a scramble, but it's a nice insurance policy to have just in case a quarterback springs free. Up top, as I mentioned before, you have the out route pretty well blanketed by the bump and run coverage, and the boundary safety settles around the hash just in case he sees some sort of in-breaking route towards him from the number 1 receiver. Ohio State has this play pretty well covered on the back end, but what really stood out on this play was their ability to execute their ET twist and bring that pressure home to the quarterback. At the top of the screen, you have the end Sam Hubbard crashing in against the right tackle, working against him man-on-man. The 3 technique next to him will be the contain player looping outside. The 3 technique closer to the bottom of the screen will pierce through the B gap, and Joey Bosa, the defensive end closer to the bottom of the screen, will work one-on-one against that left tackle in a pass rush situation. Hubbard does a really good job of using his hands to disengage the right tackle, and once he gets his body into the B gap, displays his good body control and motor to run through the running back's chip block attempt in order to finish the play at the quarterback, where he meets Bosa, who again does a really good job of getting off the ball, playing through his hands, keeping the offensive tackle locked out and off bounds, and finishing the play with the quarterback on the ground. Overall, Ohio State's ability in 2015 to disrupt offenses and prevent third down conversions from an odd or even front was impressive. They were able to send 6, disrupt the quarterback, and prevent a completion, but they were also able to drop 7, send 4, and get home. This is extremely advantageous, especially when facing a mobile quarterback. They did lose a lot of key pieces, like as I mentioned before, Bosa is gone, Darren Lee is gone, Eli Apple's gone, amongst others, but they do retain 3 key starters in DN Sam Hubbard, DN Tyquan Lewis, and linebacker Raekwon McMillan. I'll be really interested to see how those 3 players continue to mature as well as all the young players in the system, and I'll also be very intrigued to see if the Buckeyes retain their third down principles under new defensive coordinator Greg Schiano.